Washington Post attack on Trump about Rush briefings is deeply flawed fake news. A long front-page story in the Washington Post Friday that claims America's security is at risk because President Trump refuses to accept findings of U.S. intelligence agencies that Russia interfered in our 2016 presidential election is deeply flawed and amounts to fake news. I reached this conclusion based on my 25 years working in and with the U.S. intelligence community. It is clear to me that the Post's story is designed to advance the left's teetering Trump-Russia collusion narrative. And I reached the same conclusion on a related allegation by the Washington Post in the same story that President Trump's intelligence briefings are playing down or omitting intelligence on Russia's role in the presidential election. This issue has liberal journalists and former intelligence officials claiming that intelligence is being politicized to avoid offending the president. The Post article's authors Greg Miller, Greg Jaffe and Philip Rucker say that a January 6 Intelligence Community Assessment (ICA) said it was an objective reality that Russia meddled our election to help Donald Trump win. The Post article repeatedly asserts that President Trump's refusal to accept this assessment means he is refusing to recognize the threat to U.S. national security posed by Russia. The truth is that the January ICA is far from objective truth and had serious problems. I broke this story on FoxNews.com last January that this assessment appeared to be rigged to produce a conclusion to hurt President Trump politically. Why? Because intelligence community procedures on drafting this type of analysis were not followed and it reflected the views of only 3 intelligence agencies, not all 17 as the mainstream media claimed. The New York Times was forced to publish a correction on this point last June. Even worse, as I explained in a May 12 Fox News op-ed, the January ICA on Russian interference in the 2016 election was drafted by a group of about 24 hand-picked analysts, a major violation of intelligence community procedures. So what did the Washington Post article say about the huge problems with the January ICA? Absolutely nothing. In addition, the Post article's allegations of politicization of President Trump's presidential daily briefings are extremely misleading. According to the article, the briefer who sees the president every morning often structures his presentations to avoid upsetting the president. The article also claims that analysis about Russia that may draw Trump's ire is in some cases included only in the written assessment and not raised orally. There is no scandal here. President Trump's presidential daily briefing, a highly classified document about 10 pages long, is not excluding any intelligence on Russia. The Post article omits that by tradition, the oral briefing is as short or long as the president wants. The article also don't mention that CIA Director Mike Pompeo briefs the president every morning. A more important omission, the article fails to mention that Presidents Clinton and Obama often would not meet with their briefers on the presidential daily briefing at all because the presidents did not like what the briefers had to say. I wrote about this in 2014. Mark Thiessen wrote a similar column in 2012 published in the Washington Post, a publication that Washington Post reporters presumably should be aware of. So in fairness, shouldn't President Trump be credited for meeting with his presidential daily briefing briefer every day, after President Obama refused to do so? Miller, Jaffe and Rucker also tried to shore up the deteriorating narrative of collusion between President Trump and his advisors with the Russians. The reporters claimed that the president's skepticism about intelligence assessments of Russian meddling in the election and his interest in establishing a working relationship with Russia represents something nefarious. Never mind that no evidence whatsoever of such collusion between Trump or his campaign and Russia to influence the presidential election has surfaced, despite multiple investigations since mid-2016. The reporters also ignored that the Obama administration sought to establish a working relationship with Russia. Remember Hillary Clinton's Russia reset? I believe President Trump's reluctance to accept the findings of U.S. intelligence agencies on Russian election meddling is understandable, given the major flaws in the January 2017 ICA as well as the incredible hostility that intelligence officers expressed against him before and after the election. Current and former intelligence officers have been trying to undermine Donald Trump since the summer of 2016 by calling him a traitor, stating they would refuse to brief him when he was a presidential candidate and leaking details of his intelligence briefings to the media. I have long believed that this disrespectful and irresponsible behavior severely damaged the relationship between U.S. intelligence agencies and President Trump. I was stunned when former Deputy